Hello and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. So today's video is maybe less about actual tactics and more about just some observations that I made during my last few battles. And it's to do with, well, mostly to do with the heavy weapons that I've been taking in my infantry squads. So I've always been a big advocate of, if you don't know what to give an infantry squad, slap an autocannon grenade launcher on it, and that won't do you. That'll do you proud. That won't do you any harm. But I've been noticing recently, I've been playing a lot of Tau, and it seems to be with Tau that you need to make sure that when you hit them, you hurt them. And the autocannon has been doing less and less for me. And I've been taking less and less of them. I used to take 12 autocannons in my lists. I'm down to now about 4. And instead, what I've been finding is my Lascannons have been working overtime. You see, I often like to take 3 blobs in my army with, one with autocannon, one with missile launcher, and one with Lascannon. And that gives me some versatility. And I've run that for a while now. And I tend to find that my autocannon blob, it doesn't achieve as much as my others. I don't know if it's just the way I'm using it. Maybe it's the way I deploy it. I'm not entirely certain. But it never seems to achieve the same amount. However, my Lascannon blob always does something awesome every game. So, for example, when I took the Emperor Shield Infantry Company to a tournament a few months ago, my Lascannon blob every single game, it won my personal, unit of the match every single game. It was killing Imperial Knights. It was destroying, stompers. Any vehicles, any monsters, creatures, they were laying the hurt on. They were after the first 2 turns of shooting, they became the priority target of my opponent. Whereas my autocannon blob, I don't think it achieved much of note ever. And so I've started to feel with Imperial Guard that when because we don't have the raw damage output that a lot of other armies have. We can't do what Eldar can do, which is give every member of a bike squad a heavy weapon, essentially. I mean, if we could give every guardsman, if we could just turn whole platoons of guardsmen into heavy weapon teams, maybe that would be better, but that's beside the point. I feel like now we have to make sure that every shot counts. I'll give you a recent example. I'll give you a recent example. I played a game versus Tau recently, and the player was using the optimized stealth cadre, and it was absolutely wrecking me. And my autocannons, they were also using a lot of devilfishes and hammerheads, and I kept finding that with my autocannons, I would have to put the tank hunter, monster hunter, bring it down order on them in order to try and get bits of, to try and get hull points onto the vehicles, but then, or onto the ghost keel for the optimized stealth cadre. But then they would have their cover save, so they jink away, and because they get disruption pods, it's a 3+ jink, which means I was struggling to hull points as it was with strength 7. Any hull points I did do, they jinked, and I was putting plenty of wounds on the ghost keel, but it got 2-up cover save from them. However, with my Lascannons, because my Lascannons are punching hard, front armor of a devilfish, they're cracking through that on a 3+, of a hammerhead on a 4+. What it meant was I was able to use the fire on my target, the ignores cover order on them, which meant that combined with me using prescience as much as possible, I was throwing out 5 twin-link Lascannons to turn with ignores cover. I was, smashing hammerheads, sweeping stealth teams off the field. Because normally, if I shoot a stealth team with an autocannon, yeah, both of autocannon and Lascannon, they both wound on 2-ups. But with the Lascannon, you put ignores cover on it, it kills stealth team. You put ignores cover on autocannon, stealth team gets 3+ save. So what I've been sort of finding is essentially that I need to make sure that my shots do damage when they hit. I can't keep. There's so much cover these days with all competitive vehicles having jink, with people loving to shove their monsters creatures into cover. With just cover everywhere, I need to make sure that the shots I have don't get stopped by these ridiculous jink saves, ridiculous cover saves. So I keep feeling more and more that I need to spam Lascannons. I just feel like that's what I need. My missile launchers have been doing me well, as I've been doing proud as well, but they've always, I feel, kind of broke even. But the problem I have with missile launchers, they never seem to have quite the punch of the Lascannon. I feel like paying for the extra 5 points to make it strength 9 AP2 is worth it. But you know, I could be happy spamming missile launchers. I think what I'm trying to say here is, in the new day and age of everyone having cover, of monsters creatures being everywhere, there's only a few monsters creatures that have a 2+ save. I think the only one I can think off the top of my head is the Riptide. So normally AP3 will do you fine, which maybe means missile launchers spammed in high enough quantities would be good, and it won't break the bank too much in terms of paying extra points for the heavy weapon scenes on your squads. So I feel like the autocannon really, it's a good choice still. But I just think with everyone loving them big bastarding units, the autocannon is falling farther and farther behind. I think we need to make sure that when the shots hit, they kill. I feel, in the special weapons department, my grenade launchers, they're still doing alright for the points because I take so many of them. I take 10, 12 grenade launchers in a list. That's actually only sets me back 40 to 50 points. I only have to kill 3 Marines. I only have to do a couple of hull points for my grenade launchers to earn their points back. That's not the same. That's, it's different with autocannons. They're expected to do more. Grenade launchers aren't. They're cheap. However, you're thinking, I love my melter gun Lascannon blobs. I've been finding, and maybe it's just because I'm playing Tau a lot. But I'm finding it's taking me too long to get my melter guns into range. Normally the enemy comes towards me a little bit. I'm used to facing Death Stars. But my melter guns, they'll often take 4 turns to get into range against Tau, which is too long. I'm feeling it may be worth to scrounge the points from elsewhere and to up the melter guns to plasma guns. I know I'm losing 1 strength, but I'm gaining that AP2. That's really, I'm sort of thinking this through as I'm doing this video. There's no script to this video. This is purely just, there's no script to any of my videos, to be honest. I think about them a little bit before I do them, but that's it. This is purely off the cuff. This is purely a brain dump. I feel like maybe it's not necessarily the high strength is an important factor, but I definitely feel like it's the low AP, the AP2 and 3 is what we really need. Because, taking a Riptide as an example, an autocannon is gonna wound a Riptide on a 3, and a plasma gun is going to wound a Riptide on a 3, but only one of those is going to cut straight through its armor with the ignores cover order. That's really what it comes down to. That's really it. What I'm thinking here now is, I feel like autocannons, they're not quite pulling the same weight as they used to. We're in the age of monsters creatures. Most monsters creatures have 3+ saves or better. They have the toughness to tank the wounds. I mean, the autocannons, saving grace used to be. Because it was strength 7, you would shoot it at infantry anyway, and it used to guarantee that when you hit, you did damage because you would be wounding on 2s. But now, most of the time, you're shooting at monsters, creatures. It's no longer guaranteeing you're wounding on 2s. Most of the time, it's wounding on 3s. Sometimes 4s, and in really depressing times when you're shooting a Wraith Knight with them, it's wounding on 5s. But in none of those situations is it able to crack through the armor. None of them. So yeah, I still like my autocannons. I'll still probably field them, but I think I'm going to go through a period now. I have the models to do this, so it's not going to bust my bank open. But I feel like I'm going to go through a period now of Lascannon plasma gun spam. I'm going to do it. I did that video on plasma where I said, only crazy people would spam plasma. Well, crazy times call for crazy ideas, and I think plasma spam and Lascannon spam backed up with a sprinkling of prescience from Psychers, I think that could do really well. I think it's also, that's where the inspiration for the Predator, I've did a video recently about Predators, mass Lascannons, 15 Lascannons a turn on 5 Predators, ally those in with your guard. I think that's where this all is coming from. I'm finding that I need more and more Lascannons. I'm finding that 5 Lascannons ain't cutting it for my anti-tank. I mean, the good thing about them is that, if I shoot it's almost like the Lascannon is now a more versatile weapon. I'm sorry, I'm gonna come back to this. I know maybe I feel like I'm repeating myself, but hopefully I'm not. I'm gonna come back to this. The Lascannon is now a more versatile weapon than the autocannon. That's how I feel about it. Because the autocannon used to be the jack of all trades, master of none, but now it's the master of nothing, and it can't do jack shit. I mean, think about the competitive meta that we're playing in. We're playing against Invisible Death Stars. We're playing against White Scar Bikers. We're playing against Tau with all their monstrous creatures. And Eldar can do almost a little bit of all of that. What can the autocannon bring to the party in that case? Well, it doesn't fire enough shots to make it worth, a damn against an invisible unit. It's about as good as against an invisible unit as a Lascannon when it comes to hitting things. Against bikes, well, yeah, I put Ignore's cover on the unit, but you put Ignore's cover on an autocannon blob. Guess what? The autocannon blob goes from the White Scar Bikers go from having a 3+ Jinx save to 3+ armor save, no big deal. However, you put Ignore's cover on a Lascannon blob, those White Scar Bikers go from having a 3+ save to being a squishy red paste on the carpet. They're dead, and you only need to hit them. You're facing down against monsters, creatures. I don't want to repeat myself. The autocannon won't even wound very easily. It's wounding on 3s against Riptides, and then it gets its armor save of 2 up. So it's going to save it, and by some miracle it doesn't save it. Bam! It gets that 5 up, feel no pain. Against the Lascannon, if you hit it, you're going to wound it because you're wounding on 2 ups, and then it only gets its 5 up, feel no pain. That's a big deal. That just cuts down all that. The Riptide's famed, infamous durability goes out the window. What about, a lot of people go on about the Gladius these days. Well, the last thing you want when facing a Gladius is you face all those Razorbacks. The last thing you want is to only have a 50-50 chance of doing any damage to that thing because your autocannon's already strength 7. Stripping hull points off is hard work when you're facing 10 transports, drop pods, Razorbacks. It's hard work. What you want is when you hit it, it dies. That's what a Lascannon can give you. It's not going to get... You don't need tank... You can tank hunter, monster hunter, but you're going to be doing hull points on a 2 up. And there's a good chance you're going to blow it up. You take 3-4 Lascannon blobs, you put prescience on half of them, you'll be blowing up 4 transports a turn, guaranteed. So I feel like the Lascannon, that's what I mean by go big or go home. The Lascannon now is almost your master of all trades. It can take on any of the competitive shit out there. Someone spamming grav bikers at you, you don't give a fuck. Ignore that Jinx save. Turn them to red paste. Someone spamming Riptides at you, big deal. You can, with 2 company command sword Lascannons, 5 Lascannons, and 5 plasma guns in a blob, press against those up, you can kill a Riptide a turn. And that's only, or 2 blobs, Eldar got you down. Hello, Mr. Wraith Knight, to my million Lascannons I'm now taking. The only thing you're going to struggle with, in theory, are Horde armies. Oh, one other thing, Necrons. I always forget to mention Necrons. Oh, hello, Necrons, with your will be back. Well, I guess on all those Immortals, which have a 3-up save, so my autocannons wouldn't be doing much against them anyway, I might as well reduce your will be back roll by 1, because instant death on the Lascannon. If you feel like putting Lascannons and everything is expensive, take missile launchers. Save those 5 points. Missile launchers are just as effective against the Gladius. You're still going to be punching through those rhinos on 3-ups against the Razor, against the Grav Bikers, against what's the other one? Against the Wraith Knight. The only thing that you're going to struggle against is going to be the Riptides. But I could maybe save yourself 5 points and take missile launcher plasma gun squads. I feel like that could really work. You're not busting the point bank too much. Rather than it being 85 point squads, only 80. Those 5 points stack up. I think that just musing, just thought out loud, just stream of consciousness. That's what this video is. But it's just what I've noticed over the last 12 months, I would say. It's really come to a head recently with me getting a lot of practicing against Tau. I like playing against Tau because they're a really, really good army, and that's as the guards struggle against Tau, but if you can pull off a win against Tau, it makes you feel extra good. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say. If any of you guys have got any thoughts, obviously leave a comment. Maybe I'm going mad here. I know I always advocate if you can take it cheaper, you should do it. But sometimes I think spending the points. Sometimes it is worth spending the points. But that doesn't mean I want you going out and putting every upgrade you can on an infantry squad, because that's stupid. But yeah, like I said, I hope you've enjoyed it. Please leave your comments, let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys next time.